is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin overseas tonight, where one of the world's most controversial politicians has stepped back into the spotlight. The chairman of the Palestine Liberation Organization, Yasser Arafat, has begun an official visit to France. It is a major diplomatic triumph for the PLO, and because Arafat has been received by the French president, the visit has governments everywhere watching like hawks to see what happens. On his first night in Paris, Arafat has made news by saying in the most specific language ever that the PLO's goal is accommodation with Israel, not Israel's elimination. ABC's Don Kladstrup is in Paris tonight.
It was everything Arafat could have hoped for, being welcomed like a head of state, a peacemaker. It marked the first time the PLO chairman has been received by a West European government and represented an important step in the PLO campaign for international recognition. But at the very time Arafat was being hugged and kissed at Orly Airport, burglar alarms were blaring in Paris's garment section. The alarms set off by Jewish merchants in protest of the visit. None of that seemed to bother Arafat, however, who arrived minutes later at the Élysée Palace for a meeting with President Mitterrand. During their hour-and-a-half meeting, which Arafat called useful and fruitful, the French president expressed concern about the PLO charter, which calls for the destruction of Israel. Though Arafat has said he now recognizes Israel's right to exist, the charter, said Mitterrand, seems to say otherwise. This evening on French television, the PLO leader tried to clear up the confusion. I was elected on a political program which is founded on the basis of two states, he said. As for the charter, there is an expression in French. It is caduc. Caduc means outdated or null and void.
For much of the French Jewish community, however, Arafat's visit here was an outrage. That it coincided with Israel's National Day of Mourning for victims of the Holocaust made things even worse.
Demonstrators accused President Mitterrand of selling out the Jewish community. But across town, thousands of Palestinians cheered the visit as a dramatic breakthrough. The French government says its decision to meet with the PLO leader was intended as a kind of reward for Arafat for having renounced terrorism and recognized Israel. But, added one official, it's also a move to make him a prisoner of his word, to make sure he keeps it. Don Kladstrup, ABC News, Paris.
The U.S. and Israel have both had something to say today about Arafat's declaration in Paris. The Israelis, who want nothing to do with the PLO, have said, as always, that Arafat's words are meaningless. The United States, which has begun a dialogue with the PLO, has reserved judgment. At the State Department, it is pointed out that Arafat may have enormous influence, but he cannot unilaterally change any language in the Palestinian Charter. Only the Palestinian Parliament in exile can do that. And one other note, one of Mr. Arafat's senior aides, a man named Issam Salem, was shot and critically wounded today in Lebanon. Local Lebanese officials call it an assassination attempt, and they think it was possibly by extremist Palestinians. In China today, another sign that the students' challenge to the government is not confined to the capital city. Several thousand students in the port city of Shanghai marched to the Communist Party headquarters there to deliver a petition. In Beijing, a smaller delegation, a similar message. The government should agree by tomorrow to begin talks with student representatives and broadcast them on live television, or face a new round of nationwide demonstrations. Here's ABC's Todd Carroll.
Student leaders from universities around Beijing formed a bicycle caravan today to take their ultimatum to the government. At the Great Hall of the People, they told a government representative they want top leaders to talk to them about their demands for a press that is free and fair, a crackdown on corruption, more funds for education, and a report to the public about the causes of inflation. It is a bold and unprecedented challenge to China's government. Just 6 weeks ago, as the People's Congress approved a new economic austerity program, the nation could only listen. Outside, this man complained about inflation and was picked up by police for speaking to a foreign reporter. Now, the students openly mock Communist Party leaders by presenting them a petition as if they were emperors. The students say they are patriots. On the streets, they sing the Internationale, the anthem of socialism. On campus, some quote from the American Declaration of Independence.
We hold this truth to be self-evident that all men is created equal.
The student leaders are constantly trying to reorganize themselves and say they don't want to overthrow the Communist Party, just democratize it. One of them, Shen Tong, is a 21-year-old biology student who's a member of a communist youth organization. For him, the most important goal is to push for a freer press.
Because now all the newspapers is controlled by the government. So if government do something wrong, no newspapers can say.
Like most of the students, he supports the government's economic reforms that allow more individual initiative. The government is worried that the student movement could inflame workers, already bitter over inflation, and send them into the streets in protest too. But cracking down on the students could alienate an entire generation. But the government has handled them cautiously while it decides how to respond. Some of the students say their movement for democracy will be a success if government leaders begin taking them seriously, move to put an end to official corruption, and begin listening to the voices of their people. Todd Carroll, ABC News, Beijing.
In Central Europe today, a symbol of the Iron Curtain began to come down. Hungarian soldiers began taking down the fence that runs along the frontier with Austria. Hungary already allows its citizens to travel more freely than any other country in the Soviet bloc. In a moment, the other news. Exxon's new plan to clean up Alaska. It leads to leave more of it to nature. And also on our broadcast tonight, the growing mountain of trash in America. It is not what you throw out sometimes, but how you package it. And a chance to live out your fantasy in the big leagues.